He took her by the hand and lifted her up. Will you pray with me? Speak. Your servant is listening. Say a word to your people that we might hear and be transformed in the hearing. May it be so. He took her by the hand and lifted her up. Another translation reads, he took her by the hand and helped her up. Still another reads, he took her by the hand and raised her up. However we read it, the outcome of this encounter between Jesus and Simon's mother-in-law is a healing, a restoration to life and wholeness for someone who, in the usual order of things, would not have been healed, would not have been seen. You see, in first century Palestine, when upwards of 95% of the people were economically marginalized and culturally isolated, and whose well-being would not have been of much concern to the powers that be, to take her hand and raise her up is a profound statement. To take her hand and raise her up is less a story about Jesus' remedy to a medical problem than it is about Jesus' intervention into a world of endless struggle. You see, in the world of Simon's mother-in-law, it is a world of daily struggle and survival. In her world of fishers and farmers, the lame and leprous, where the struggle for food, land, honor, and standing was a daily reality, when poverty was not cyclical, but persistent and largely permanent, Jesus intervenes to interrupt the order of things. In the logic of domination in which Jesus and his disciples lives, it is of no value to anyone to show care and compassion for a woman of no significance. That's not the story. Who would dare give up their own honor and status by defiling themselves through unnecessary touch of a sick woman? It's not done. No, but he took her hand and raised her up. This healing is indeed healing, but it is also resistance. I think Mark wants us to see that this is an action of resistance. It's justice work. To take her by the hand and raise her up is to tell the world and those who are struggling that nothing about poverty, sickness, and suffering is inevitable or necessary. The story doesn't have to be this way. And so Jesus, in interrupting this imperial narrative of honor and shame and status and patronage, of some being down here and some being up here, Jesus leads with his commitments. Not just by announcing good news. In fact, here there is no announcement of good news. There's no choosing a text to give a sick woman good news. No, not by announcing good news, but by being good news. Being good news to people who have become accustomed to poverty, disease, and survival as just the way of things. And just so we don't allow ourselves to get waylaid by our enlightenment demands for verification and falsifiability at what Jesus may or may not have done, I hope we linger a little on how Jesus acted to show us what his presence means in the midst of struggle. We will never know if or how this healing takes place, but that debate will never help us grasp the meaning of what happened here. And the evangelist Mark's sparse just the facts narrative, when Jesus encounters Simon's mother-in-law, there are no words. There is no prayer. Jesus is no medical doctor, and he does no examination. There is no diagnosis of her disease or prognosis of what is likely to happen to her in the next few months. There is no background check or a means test to determine if she's deserving of the benefit of healing. No, he took her by the hand and lifted her up. And she is healed, restored, made whole. Oh, there were a lot of healers and magicians running around during Jesus' ministry, but this healer offers something more than just a remedy to one individual by confronting the chaos and alienation of poverty and domination, by showing care and compassion to a sick woman, by taking her hand and helping her. Jesus was embodying the good news that struggle and poverty is not the inevitable story for anybody. That the good news is that God intervenes in a material way to make life possible. There were no words. There was no prayer. This is a changing of the story from futility and hopelessness to wholeness and possibility. And that's good news. And guess what? Mark says the whole town got the message. The whole town got the message. Not one word, not one prayer. And the whole town got the message. And brought to him all who were sick and possessed with demons. Oh, I know. I hope we don't let the talk of demons obstruct our view of what exactly is being confronted and overcome. We need not spiritualize this talk of demons nor shrink from it as a primitive superstition to envision the chaos and alienation experienced by people who are oppressed, exploited, and dominated. We need not worry about talk of demons when we can envision, actually see in our own time, the distortion of one's personhood when life is nothing but struggle for food, water, housing, and medicine. Oh, Jesus acts to bring them dignity and restore their personhood. For a people forgotten, degraded, and discarded for the first time in their lives, someone finally took them by their hands and helped them. Someone finally drew close to them without asking them how they were going to pay, or if they had a pre-existing condition, or if they deserved to be made whole. No, someone finally showed up and told them that they can do more than just struggle and survive. They could be a whole people. When Jesus took Simon's mother-in-law, took her hand, he wasn't just challenging science or nature or physics. I know that's what people want us to talk about. But when he took her hand and lifted her up, he wasn't challenging science, nature, or physics. He was challenging a system that couldn't care less if she or any of those other people lived or died. And you know how we know that he challenged that system? Because he will pay a price for it, and it will be costly. There is a struggle going on. There is a struggle going on. Whether we see it or not, the struggle is real. There are casualties and survivors of this order of things. This order of things that sees people as expendable for the sake of a myth of freedom and equality and progress. But the struggle is real. It is real. It is a struggle to live whole lives when food, rest, wages, and medicine become scarce commodities subject to the logic of markets. Oh, in light of the ongoing struggle, perhaps the world needs more of us using our own bodies to change the story, to change the narrative, to change the order of things. Perhaps the world needs us using our own bodies, our own hands to raise up our neighbors in this world, especially when every institution is telling us to stop, go slow, give up. Using our bodies the way Jesus did to embody a different way of showing up for our neighbors. Using our bodies to embody a different story than the one our political, economic, and religious institutions insist on telling us. Just as I was wrestling with Mark's account about this healing, a friend who is dealing with family members who are sick and suffering posted on his Facebook wall just right before I put pen to paper. And he posted there, to be poor and have a chronic illness in America is hell. Poverty is hell. And it is a hell that knows no geography or any particular historic era. Whether it be Simon's mother-in-law or my friend's uncle. We live in a system that soothes us with a myth of goodness and progress that separates us from the struggle of others. Oh, I can tell you there is no experience more heartbreaking than to witness a person struggling with poverty, sickness, or homelessness, confronting, negotiating, and navigating processes and bureaucracies just to get help. The attempt to explain one's situation in the most effective way possible so that the one who has the power to meet that most pressing need will be moved to give them a hand and lift them up. The anxiety that ensues because one cannot all be sure that they will get the medicine, the food, or the housing they need. This is the daily struggle of millions. And so I wonder in our own work, in our interventions into the middle of struggle, if we have ourselves become too acclimated to the prevailing narrative of the order of things. Every day we encounter people who have been forgotten, degraded, then discarded, even as our nation facilitates more wealth and more power for a few people, all in the name of democracy and capitalism. How much of what we do interrupts that story? How much of what we do forecasts for the world that there is a different story to be told? How much of what we do truly disrupts and resists how things happen? When we take the hands of those who are struggling and raise them up, yes, we do. We know how to take hands and raise them up. But when we do it, are we at the same time resisting the story of liberty and justice and democracy that tells us that any and everybody can make it if they truly, really wanted to? And then are we willing to pay the price of truly resisting the narrative of national greatness and exceptionalism by taking people by the hand and raising them up, even when it is not popular nor convenient? Are we really willing to walk into the middle of it all without words and present to the world a new story with our actions? Perhaps the good news of this gospel is that we need not accept the steady drudgery of bad news, economic inequality, and social marginalization as just the accepted order of things. This is how capitalism works. Perhaps we can intervene and confront that order of things. We can resist the logic of markets, scarcity, and domination that thinks healing and wholeness for all God's children is unsustainable. Paying a living wage is unsustainable. Providing affordable health care is unsustainable. Providing housing to all those who need it is unsustainable. I know we often think resistance to injustice comes more effectively in the march, the protest, or the ballot box. However, the act of taking someone by the hand and raising them up, bringing healing and wholeness right now, not as some far-off unrealized hope or some public policy discussion, but an actual touching and lifting up in the here and the now, the way Jesus did with that sick woman, without regard for what the powers may think or say, but bringing healing and wholeness as a present reality because we dared upend the status quo. Justice work as an embodied reality over and against systems that prefer reform rather than abolition. Hope without praxis, charity rather than transformation. There's a different story. And I admit to you, I am hopeful. I am hopeful. I hear it and see it. I hear and see that alternative story. I hear it in the testimonies of our own volunteers. I hear it in the stories of transformation. Oh, it's not loud enough. There are too many people who can't hear it, but the story is there. The story of being present and healing and wholeness for all God's children as a present reality here and now. And every time I think about it, I think about the song, a popular song by the recording artist, Josh Groban. And it is about raising people up. And there's a simple opening to it. It calls to mind about how real the struggle is, materially and spiritually. And he sings, "When I am down, and oh, my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up." Go, people of God, take your neighbor by the hand and raise them up. Amen.